Welcome to writingalong.com. Today's episode is all about how to write a good plot. Plot is, it's can be so varied. The content of what you're actually writing can be so interchangeable. I mean, you can be writing about spaceships in an intergalactic war. You can be writing about a very real war down here on Earth right now. You could be writing about just your experience growing up in your town, in your country, and wherever you're from. How people react to you, how that's defined who you are in your life, and how it's changed over time, and how who you've become is really directly linked to the world that you found yourself in. And you might even not do that first person. You might do that through another character that you're imbuing and bringing to life all these thoughts and experiences you have, and bringing them to life through another character. A book, a scene, a setting, fictitious points in time that don't really exist directly. They don't parallel something. Yeah, they're not historical accounts necessarily, but they do resemble a real human experience, a real human story. And that's what you want. You just want a human story. It doesn't have to be, right? Humans. You can be writing them if you really want. You can be talking about aliens or something like this dimension, this aura, this sphere, whatever you want to call it, this portion of reality that you're making come forth. It doesn't have to exist here. I mean, there can be parts of it that aren't possible in real life. Certain things that happen in your stories, in your story, your novel, your book. They don't have to be direct parallels to what goes on here. You don't have to set the limits to what the limits are here. They can break into different parts that may seem esoteric, that may seem abstract or mystical or mythical. Certain forces may be more apparent spiritually, however you want to make it. But a good plot at its core is always a human story, nevertheless. They don't even have to be humans. Let tons of animation films speak to you about that, right? Not even any human characters, and yet people understand them, they react to them, they like them, because the plot is really just that. The narrative is always tied to humanity. People want to hear about themselves. If you have an understanding of the world around you, it comes from the things that are similar to you, where you see yourself in, where do you find yourself. No one really always talks about, they talk about the 21st century understanding of cosmology, not cosmetology, cosmology, right? Like the spatial celestial bodies and their interaction with each other and their movements and their patterns and behaviors. It seems to always not just be this. Some people who are really specialized in this they can visualize this mathematical, practical. You can call it imperialistic worldview of it, where it's just this moves here, this moves there, this emits this, and this has this composition. But it mostly the kind of narrative, the kind of plot, it always involves ourselves. Where do I fit into this? What would I do if I was there? You want a story that kind of creates and captures that feeling, that essence of your audience sits back and, what would I do? Like it starts a discussion like that, and you don't have to try, you don't have to make a moment like, okay, time for a moral dilemma. No, I mean, your characters following human patterns, following human events, what we're known to do, the traps we find ourselves in, and just emotionally in terms of our life, our decision making, all that kind of stuff. Just doing that, by doing that naturally, your reader, your audience will feel engaged. They'll ask themselves too, like, how can I, what am I learning from this? Like, not educational television. I don't think television has to just be teaching you, preaching to you to be educational. I mean, it can just be stuff happening, events occurring, and you really feel like you see yourself in it sometimes. And that is what happens when you tell a human story. It could be someone's life. I mean, your own life. Put your own life in your story. I always tell writers to do this because it's so practical. It's so doable right now. You don't have to write a book about your life, but you use your life. You use the lives around you. Certain things that stood out. When someone says something and you remember it years later, you don't know why you still remember it. That kind of stuff, those kinds of feelings, include that. It's like your mind has this collection of things, that these experiences that it's had, that it remembers what it's like, what it felt like. It's profound. It's like you have this just collection of things to use. That's what you want to use in your writing. You don't have to sit around coming up with them. I mean, that'd be impossible. You'd be at it forever. If you thought that was the expectation, you have to make something new, something original, something no one's ever heard before. What's original, what no one's ever heard before, what makes it unique in your own is that no one has ever put it the way together that you have in particular. The way you played it, the way you made it out to be. That kind of thing with writing it's so unique, it's so individualistic automatically without even trying. And that's what I want you that's how I want you to find yourself in writing. I want you to imbue that and find that place. And the first step to finding that place is knowing that it exists, knowing that you can get there and be there as a writer. As far as plot, like I'm saying, it just involve decision making, involve a series of events, a sequence of events that would occur where what would you do yourself in that position? Insert yourself into the characters, and we're incredibly dynamic. I mean, I don't just mean you have to experience this sensation of multiple personalities, but you can split your mind up in different perspectives and you can see things from different sides and believe in only one side, but you can still see it from the other side. You're like, it's looking from here, you're looking from there, and you're like, what does this mean? What does that mean? That whole thing, like, you can look from different angles. You can look from above, you can look from beneath, like, not necessarily in the literal sense, but yeah, in the literal sense too. Just further proves the point, further drives it home that because of that, imbue your own decision making into your stories, into your plots. What's a journey? What's an experience that someone has undergone? It doesn't have to be just you. And this is where I want you to realize as well. It doesn't have to just be this formulaic thing that you have to do. There are certain plots and formats that work for certain mediums if that's what you're trying to do. I mean, if you're trying to write a film that will get shown and be a blockbuster, that's a formula you're following. The game of that is sticking to it and abiding by it as best as you can and throwing in random stuff here and there. They do make it their own, but I don't want you to write formulaic. I don't want you to just throw some trash out there into the world. I want you to write authentically. I want you to really contribute something that is you, because you have something to contribute. You have something I don't have. You have something no one else has. And how is the world ever going to see that? How are you ever going to see that? How are you ever going to get that portion of your understanding, your portion of your worth, portion of your place in this life? If you don't let it out, if you don't ever get it out, if you think you can't for some reason, if you hold back, let's let go of everything right now that's trying to hold you back as far as I need to have the most interesting plot. I need to say something that no one has ever said before. I need to have a plot that no one expects, this turn or that turn. Sometimes the unexpected is the expected. What could actually happen in real life? Everyone's always trying to, be so clever that their misstep is not realizing that clever can be unrelatable because it's not really relevant. It's that forced, like, it's like trying to invent something that there's no need for it. It doesn't need to be made. You want to make a new, what's something that's very prevalent? You think for yourself right now. What's something that is already existing? It doesn't really need to be replaced because it does a good job already for what it is. Insert the blanks, fill in the blanks for yourself there. I can think of 100 things. You probably can think of 100 things. You wouldn't create something else to replace it because it already does such a great job. That's what the human narrative is. That's what the human element of plot development is. It does the job and more, and then some, infinitely. You don't have to worry about running out of human ideas, nor because you're not against that standard. You're not trying to, oh man, that's been done before, can't do it. That's already been said. That kind of plot has been done already. No, tell a familiar plot if you want to. Just be inspired by it. But what I don't want you to do, again, is directly think that you have to follow this pattern of intro, exposition, this happens now, this climactic act format, and now this, and I have to have that, I have to that. Some of those ancient writers that maybe people have studied and where they lifted those kinds of ideas and concepts from, no writing. Like, if you want to dig into writing, this side of it is really interesting. I don't always talk about it because it can be very just, it's a lot. It's too much sometimes. It's just, it's not practical. You can't always apply it. But those writers weren't sticking by any rules. They broke rules. They created them as they went. And it was just so bold and just expository, just so on its own, it stood for itself. And that's why people model their own stories after them, just almost out of instinct, almost just bowing down to them. Like, whoa, I have to have this. It has to look like this. But no, they didn't come from that place. They came from a place of saying, I'm going to write a plot. I'm going to write a story in my own structure. I'm going to create my own structure. This happens, this happens, this happens. And it's going to resemble what I've seen, what I've witnessed, what is already readily apparent to me. People say write what you know. It's not just about that. What do you know about? You know about like pizza. You know about cars. You know about what do you know? Like you can, that list is just like it never ends. It's not very helpful to just hear write what you know. No, write what is just familiar with you. Write what is in front of you. Write what is with you right now. What place have you found yourself in? What life have you found yourself living? What does it look like? What does it feel like? Do you feel like escaping? Do you like it there? Do you want to stay there? Those are the kinds of plots people relate with. That's a good plot because people know them, they feel them, it connects with them, it reaches them, it pierces them. Whether they like it or not, they're going to have a reaction to it. They can't help because they so selfishly insert themselves into it. And selfish isn't always bad, like I say, because it involves yourself. It involves an element of survival. Self-understanding is a form of survival, and you can convey that through your writing. You can create that through your writing. If you're interested in writing a book, check out How to Write a Book in 30 Days on my website, writingalong.com, completely free guide. It's, like I said, writing along, 24 pages. You just got to enter your email. I send it to you, and it lives in your inbox because that's where you'll really pay attention to it. Because aren't you always looking for some kind of email that is life-changing? You open it, it's all these annoying promos and sales on your favorite retail stores or whatever, and spam. Don't you want something that's really going to help you? So change up your inbox. I'll see you around. I really appreciate you sticking by for this episode. See you on the next episode.